Start with the revisiting the game. Was pleased with the outcome of the game, obviously, to get a win at home. Appreciate the student section. I thought the athletic administration, appreciate them for making the move to a Thursday night. Appreciate the university making all the accommodations that they needed to. But really appreciate the students for showing up and making it a great atmosphere and a great time. And really enjoyed the win. There's a lot of room for growth after watching the film in all phases of the game, specifically on special teams, and punt coverage was not nearly good enough or efficient enough. It was a tremendous effort by Bobby Lawrence from St. Joe and Joseph Charleston to get the tackle. Otherwise, it would have been a punt return for a touchdown, which can't happen. We got to clean up the distance of the punt and our punt coverage team getting out there and making sure that we're boxing the ball. Defensively, we got to eliminate explosive plays. Too many. Great job stopping the run, but we can't give up explosive plays for touchdowns that are 60 and 70 yards and 35 yards. We got to do a much better job at the back end with disciplined eyes, understanding where our fits are and where we're supposed to be. And then offensively, we must eliminate turnovers and short yardage execution. 2 red zone turnovers were big, and short yardage, we had 2 3rd and 1s and a 4th and 1 that we weren't converted. So we've got to be more physical in the trenches. We've got to have a better attitude about that, and we've got to execute in those situations. Going to be an extremely difficult test this week. Obviously playing in a very difficult environment, a place that has a reputation for being loud. Obviously, a lot of respect for what Coach Snyder had built there and the way he's gone about that and the tremendous program that he put together. And Coach Kleiman is obviously continuing that tradition. It's a very physical football team, a very tough football team. It's led, in my opinion, by the defense. Coach Klanderman has done a nice job in his 2 years there. They play a unique style of defense with their own twist to it. They've got key players. Their defensive end, number 91, and I do not want to mispronounce his last name, so Felix is a tremendous talent that can rush, plays extremely hard. No reason to not think that he is, in my opinion, an NFL first-round type talent at the defensive end position. Their nose, Eli Huggins, with a name like Eli, he's got to be a hell of a player. But very good nose. He's the kind, in my opinion, the guy that makes it go because of their 3-down system. He's able to create push. He chases the football, rushes the passer. He really does all things well. Their linebacker, Daniel Green, shows up consistently on tape, physical downhill player. And then Julius Brents, the transfer from Iowa, is a tremendous long corner that can play man-to-man skills and does a nice job in zone, which is a guy that I'm sure they're planning on taking away our weapons on the perimeter. Offensively, Colin Klein, their offensive coordinator, obviously is a name that we're all familiar with for what he did as a player, but he's just as good of a quarterbacks coach and offensive coordinator. He's 2-0 from calling plays. You can tell the identity of that offense is based on what he's done in the past. Obviously, they have a tremendous running back with Deuce Vaughn, who I think is a consensus or would be a consensus All-American, probably was an All-American, but a dadgum good player. Reminds me a lot of Tyler Beatty. But he's only as good as his offensive line, which I think is tremendous and probably the strength of the offense. They play physical. They protect the quarterback. They obviously got the quarterback transfer from Nebraska, Martinez, and he does a nice job both with his feet, with his decision-making, with his arms. They've got playmakers at the wide receiver position with Nolan Brooks, and so it's going to be a much difficult test on the road to slow those guys down. And then finally, special teams. I mean, they do an unbelievable job blocking punts, and they're solid in that phase. Had another block for a touchdown. I think it's somewhere like 6 blocks in the last 2 seasons. So they do a really good job of scheming that up. And if we're not better in all 3 phases, it's going to be a long day for the Tigers. So with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Eli, you made reference to it, but especially all the questions last year and coming into this year, how the field had even though it's a week, have the number 1 run defense in the country?
Haven't thought about it. Haven't paid attention to it. Worried more about the explosive plays that we got to get off tape. It doesn't really affect you if you can stop the run, but you're giving up explosive plays for touchdowns. You're just trading one problem for another. So.
Coach, what does Felix do well, and what do Devon Foster and Kyle have to do to kind of limit his disruption?
Yeah, he's got great ball get off. He's got a really good up and under move. He does a great job with his hands. If you get your weight going forward, he plays really hard. He's physical in the run game. He's able to condense gaps. So if you're working a veer block, he's going to be right off that hip. If you're trying to reach him, he's physical to cause his penetration. Those guys are going to have to play a really good game. They're going to have to trust their technique, and they're going to have to play hard for 4 quarters. Any type of play off is going to result in a big-time negative play going against him.
Is he a guy looking at film that they flip around at all, or is he pretty consistently on one side?
No, they do move him around, and so he'll have opportunities at both tackles.
With all the different things that Luke the Burden was able to do in the first game, the different ways he was utilized, what have you seen about how he processes coaching? I mean, is it innate with him, or does he kind of process things differently than other players?
No, I mean, he's a good player. He studies the playbook. I think we'll find a better test this week. You know, we've been able to rep a lot of that stuff for the better part of 2 weeks, and now everything happens a lot faster, and you're going to have to flush that and say, okay, this is how we're doing this week, and so it's a whole new test and opportunity, and, you know, going on the road and playing in front of what's the capacity of the stadium? I'm sorry, Mom. And going and playing in front of 50,000 who really don't like you is going to be a whole lot of playing in front of 50,000 who do. So, you know, all that stuff's kind of out the window. And again, he's a young player. He's got a lot of talent and ability, but let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. This is going to be a big test for him and all of us this week going on the road and playing in this environment.
Eli, when it comes to scheduling a Power 5 outside the SEC, is this ideal for you?
I'm not getting in trouble this year.
Eli, with the amount of talent on K-State's defensive line, how do you think your O-line played this past week, and what were some of the things they did well? What were some points of improvement?
I thought we played on edges and allowed too much penetration. Obviously, 2 3rd and 1s that we weren't able to get is not indicative of the style of offensive line play that we want. Irregardless of the final stats, I think all of us look at that tape and know that we can be better in the run game, making sure that we're cleaner. I thought our track of the backs and path of the backs was off on some of our run schemes. So there's a whole lot for us to clean up, and you know, we won the game. That was ultimately what was good about it. Everything else has got to get better.
Is there anything you know now about the team that you didn't know going in to Thursday night?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's things that I feel a lot more confident in. I think there's also things that are of concern that have to get fixed. I think the best thing that I've seen about this team is their hunger to improve and their willingness to open themselves up to critique, to ignore the noise and the pats on the back and, hey, we've arrived. We ain't done nothing, all right? We're 1-0, which is exactly what we want to do, but what happened last week, they don't carry any of those points over. They don't carry any of those stats over. They don't carry any of those turnovers over. This is a brand new week with a whole different set of challenges, with a lot of really good players in a tough environment on the road. So if we're worried about last week or patting ourselves in the back and all that bull crap, we're in for a tough day. So we got to have a mature mindset of put that away, take what you take from tape, learn, get better, and focus on this new task at hand.
Coach, K-State got 4 sacks and a lot of decent pressure with that 3-3-5. What kind of problems does that type of defense, bring to the offense?
Yeah, it creates different angles for your offensive line, both in protection and the run scheme. That's things that you're not used to working specifically for us because we play a 4-down system. And so we haven't seen that. It's unique. With your protections, they're able to create one-on-ones, and so it kind of puts guys on islands. It lulls the quarterback to sleep because he's thinking it's zone. I should have time, and those guys create penetration. They puncture the pocket. And those guys are relentless at the defensive end position. So when Eli creates puncture at the pocket, your quarterback steps up, they fold over the top. And so it's a unique scheme, but they've done it really well. And so it's a challenge for us.
With all the talk about the environment, I know you do as much as you can to prepare guys for a road game, but is it a thing where You don't necessarily know how a guy's gonna react until he's out there?
Again, I think there's some guys on our team that are very mature, that have handled road environments before, and I look for those guys to be leaders and bring the other guys along. But we got a lot of new guys on our team, and so this is the first time that this team has gone on the road, and so we need the older guys and our coaching staff to make sure that we're communicating the standard and upholding the standard of what we like to do on the road, how we go about our business, and we need those other guys to get on board with that, which I don't sense that's going to be an issue. But anytime you're traveling with new guys, I think about the defensive side of the ball. There's a lot of new guys, new faces on that side of the ball that are traveling for the first time. Not so much on offense, obviously Nate and Cody, but for the most part, and Tyler, but for the most part, the offense has stayed consistent with what we've had in the past. But the defense side of the ball's got a lot of new guys that we're going to have to get accustomed to how we do it.
Eli, is there a respect level for what Chris Kleinman's been able to do, not just, everything he did at North Dakota State, but then bringing it up a level, taking on that challenge and succeeding at K-State?
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for him as a football coach to replicate success from one place to another. Obviously, he took over at North Dakota State and did a tremendous job there, winning national championships, and then taking on the challenge of K-State, which is to follow a legend, is no easy task. And to continue to build that identity, I think he's done a really good job. He's recruiting at a really good level. We're in battles with those guys constantly in the region. And so, yeah, I have a lot of respect for him. I have a lot of respect for Coach Klanderman, the defensive coordinator, just to see what he's been able to do since he's had his opportunity to be the defensive coordinator. Obviously, Coach Klein is the offensive coordinator. He's 2-0 and has earned his opportunity to call plays, and he does it the right way. And to see how hard they play on special teams, there would be no reason to have anything but the utmost respect for this coaching staff, and know that this is a team that's not going to beat themselves. They're going to be tough. They're going to be physical. They're going to execute. They're going to take care of the football. You're going to have to go in there and play your best version of football to have any type of chance, which is, again, why I'm so harping on what happened Thursday is not our best version of football. And if we duplicate that, we are in for a long day.
Coach, K-State had 6 players selected to the Big 12 preseason conference team. Specifically on defense, they have a player at each level. So when they got multiple players, how does that kind of change up your game playing the team?
Sounds like playing in the SEC. We play good players all the time in our conference and at every level. And if you don't have good players at every level in our conference, you're probably not going to be very good. So I think it's a matchup that, they are good players, and that's the norm. When you played Georgia last year, how many guys they have drafted? That's the norm in this league. So they are really good players. They're all deserving of the praise. Like I said, they're defensive end. I think their other defensive end was all Big 12 freshmen, so he's a really good player. Eli Huggins at nose, the linebacker, 22 at linebacker. Obviously, I think both corners are returning starters, but I do think that Julius Brents is a really talented kid with great length and speed and cover skills.
Was Nate Pete, did you limit him at all last week? I know you said going in you weren't sure, or was he pretty much able to do anything you wanted him to?
He was limited based on the amount of practice that he had going into that game.
Eli, with K-State being an old conference matchup, an old conference opponent, do you see any extra motivation from the local players who maybe grew up watching this kind of game?
No, I don't think so. I think it's just motivation for us. It's the opponent on the schedule. It's a regional rivalry, a regional matchup, and it's a big test for us to go on the road. Last year we weren't great on the road. I think we only had one road victory, so it's a test for this football team to have its identity, to establish what we want to be going on the road. So I don't really think what happened in the past has anything to do with what's going to happen on Saturday.
What do you think you're tackling of it? I know coaches can get concerned early in the year
Yeah, I think we did a stat. It was right at 15% or less missed tackles, which I think is really good. Anything under that is 15 is probably one of the top 10 in the country. Just there's some analytics deal you can buy that does it for us. I thought we tackled well in space. There was a couple of missed tackles that led to explosive plays where we didn't track the leverage the right way or had bad eyes. But for the most part, I think about Tyron, Hopper, JC, Dalen Carnell in the open field, Martez in the open field, KAD in the open field making tackles. So that's something that we've really emphasized all fall camp. We were physical. We tackled Sunday. In order to be a good football team, especially on the defensive side of the ball, you have to tackle. And we're not good enough to take shortcuts on any of those fundamentals.
Coach, facing a player like Deuce McClaw, who's kind of smaller, you've got to take a player something different as far as tackling them and having to get low or lower than usual when tackling a player his size.
No, our tackling targets are going to be the same. We're tracking the near hip, and it's either a frontal or a profile tackle, and unless we need to get low and gator tackle if it's a ball running away from us. But those targets don't change. I don't think he's all that little. Again, he reminds me a lot of Tyler Beatty, and so those guys have seen that style of back before. So I'm not concerned about that. What I'm more concerned with is his talent, his vision, his speed, his toughness, his ability to read their scheme, their duo scheme, set people up in blocks. If a defensive lineman gets eyes in the wrong gap, he's going to expose it. If they get out of their gap, he's going to expose it. And this was a specific run scheme that gave us a lot of trouble last year, and so we've got to take that off the tape.
With all the talk about Vaughn, what challenges does Martinez bring? And he didn't necessarily have to throw it a lot last week. But.
Yeah, I mean, he's a very talented quarterback, obviously was highly recruited and started, I believe, as a true freshman at Nebraska. He's got a lot of game experience, can create with his feet, but has a very good arm and reads the field, throws a nice deep ball, trusts his receivers. He's a good quarterback. He's going to be a difficult challenge.
Eli, after kind of watching the tape last week, is there anyone who didn't necessarily get a lot of playing time last week that earned more coming into this week against Kansas State?
No, not that I really want to discuss. I mean, the depth chart is always fluid. There's always competition, and there'll be some adjustments based off some guys that we thought had good games and maybe guys that didn't perform the way we want to. But that'll be reflective in the game on Saturday.
Coach, on the topic of leaving last week, have you had any conversations with Tyler Stevens just after that fumble and obviously the expectations for him moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, we had a conversation when he was coming off the field. Nobody intends to fumble. It's a part of the game that you're never going to accept, and so he knew it. We came back to him. I think that happened in the first quarter, and either we came back to him in the third quarter or not. He had a catch and a long run after. So, mistakes are only fatal if you don't learn from them. So he'll learn from it. It means a lot to him. He understands, but he's not going to dwell on it. He's going to go to this play and correct it, and that's how we're all going to act. So not that, I mean, it's a big deal, but it's not a detriment.
I understand he might be limited on what you can say, but just any update on Chance Looper and how he's doing?
Yeah, Chance is great. Out of the hospital, back at home. Hasn't been able to be back with the team yet just because he's dealing with just the uncomfortable part. Don't know how long for sure he's going to be out. It's dealing with a contact sport and dealing with this specific illness. That we're going to have to really rely on the doctors and make sure. But, Dad's doing well. Chance, is very disappointed. I think, in the doctor's office, they're talking about sending him to the ER, and he's saying, "You mean I can't play tonight?" So it means a lot to him. He's gone through a lot since he's been here, and it really had a great fall camp, and it earned his opportunity. And sometimes that's life. Life throws you unexpected curveballs, and our team, I think, has done a really nice job, specifically the captains, of reaching out and making sure he understands that we're there with him and fighting with him. And when we get him back, we'll get him back. It was, definitely not something that you would ever want to have happen to one of your players, but was very thankful that we were able to get it diagnosed before he played.
Did him being out change your plan or approach with Makai Miller at all? Maybe a little more?
Yeah, I mean, Makai has always been down there with us, and we're trying to bring him along just in case we had injury. Peanut hasn't been able to go because of a nagging hamstring injury that is going to keep him out an extended period of time. And so now this just thrust Makai into even more of a role in a room that's gotten a little thin. In the summer we thought this room was going to be pretty deep. That's why we moved Jamarian Wayne, and now it's like, oof. So that's the game. That's football. That's life.
Is there anything else for your defense that you feel like has led to some of the improvements? I mean, the explosive plays aside, you mentioned tackling has been an emphasis. Is there anything else that you feel like has led to the improvements?
I mean, there's all kinds of things that have led to the improvements. I think our scheme design fits our personnel. I think our scheme disguise fits our personnel and creates more confusion for the defense or for offensive coaches and play callers. I think our aggressive nature that Coach Baker has in his game planning and calling. I think our players developing in the scheme, getting better. I mean, you look out there and there's a lot of guys that have been playing a lot of football here at Missouri. And that doesn't always mean you're getting better, but these guys have been getting better. I mean, Martez Manuel, Chris Abrams-Strain, Joey C., Darius, Isaiah, Trajan, Johnny, Arden, Daniel Robledo, Chad Bailey, Devin Nicholson. Dalen Carnell's a year older within the scheme. Ennis Rakestraw's a year older within the scheme. So you're seeing that, and then you can infuse it with some guys that are very talented, with Tyron Hopper and DJ Coleman and Christian Williams and Jaden Jernigan and so on and so forth. I think it's a good match.